So I want to know about like behind the scenes on set. Obviously, you were saying in the panel that you guys were just pretty much working because it was COVID, you couldn't do anything else. In my mind, before fight scenes, everyone rolls initiative to see who can get the first punch. What is it like on set off camera?
Very much similar to any campaign. I mean, you're faced with a number of challenges, some of them unexpected, and it's figuring out how to deal with them. You know, we had to deal with a lot of people's schedules, and COVID and quarantine restrictions created a lot of issues that we had to work out. But fortunately, we had an incredible team of crew and cast that were game to pivot with the punches.
It was a highly technical shoot in a lot of ways because of the visual effects. Sometimes we were doing those in multiple locations over multiple days out of order. And so there was a lot of preparation that had to go in. Sometimes the cast wasn't even entirely sure what they were doing in that moment. So they just had to kind of rely on us to be, this is where the dragon is and you're running this way, and that kind of thing. So.
I mean, the film, there's parts of the movie, you're just trying to stitch so many different things together, and you make plans and kind of like Chris in the trailer, and then your plans change and you make a new plan. And there were parts of the film where we were planning, we'd gone scouting, like in France, for instance, we had a castle that we wanted to shoot there. And then the situation with COVID changed. We were not allowed to go to France, and it would have been 20 days of quarantine and 10 in France and 10 when we came back or whatever. And so you just pivot, and then you pivot and you make a new plan. But then we found a way to get the France castle in part of our Neverwinter castle anyways. So you're just always like looking for avenues, and it's really fun. It's like a real challenge, jigsaw puzzle as a movie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And next we have Mark from Fire Carpet.
Cool. Hello there. Hi.
Hello.
John, you started your acting career in The Amazing Freaks and Geeks, literally playing D&D. Did you want to include any in-jokes about this, and were you tempted to cast James Franco and cameo him as Carlos?
Carlos the dwarf?
Yeah.
No, he probably would have been too expensive. But we definitely got to put a few of Jonathan and my in-jokes in the film that no one would recognize or get, for that matter. The character... should I even give it away? Probably not.
For those who care, there's a name we put in all our movies going back to Horrible Bosses, I think.
It's the world's most boring Easter egg.
But I will say that the role that John had in Freaks and Geeks has been like very instrumental. Like in that, when I was at Marvel starting the search trying to find a writer for Spider-Man: Homecoming, like I read this incredible script of theirs, and one of the things we were trying to do with that movie was make something that felt like the cross between a John Hughes movie and Freaks and Geeks, and like the fact that John had been in Freaks and Geeks was like a selling point as I was trying to explain these two guys to everybody. I was like, it's Jonathan Goldstein and John Francis Daley. John Francis Daley was in Freaks and Geeks, so that like makes sense for Spider-Man: Homecoming. But it was mostly because the writing was so good. But it was a bonus.
It was a bonus.
Yeah. It's a bonus.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you.
And then we have Ian next.
Hi. All three of you, I guess especially John and Jonathan, because of your love of playing D&D, I guess however long you've been making movies, there's still moments that you find a bit magic and touches your inner child. What aspect of Dungeons and Dragons did you most enjoy seeing brought to reality?
We were filming in this forest in Northern Ireland that Reggae, Jean Page, touches upon it in the behind the scenes thing. But we had these shafts of light coming through that were not our lights. It was just from the sun, and it was a truly magical moment as we were filming that felt very much within the world of D&D. So that was a really cool moment for me.
And I would say the being able to bring that arena into the film, because it's such a massive thing, and obviously we only had a portion that we could build, and then to see it come on the screen with such success, like you really feel you're there. You really feel like there's tens of thousands of people surrounding them, and it was such a magical thing to be able to execute that.
Look, I think the whole process of making a movie is just, you're really creating a magic trick. Matt Damon has this podcast where he kind of explains that filmmaking is a magic trick. And I heard it and I was like, that's the most true thing I've heard about making a film, because you're convincing an audience just to go along with this grand illusion that you're making, and you get all these people, adults, to go along with this fabricated reality that you're weaving together, and you have to trust the direction and the insights of your writer and your director. And it's just a really fun process to watch people literally make magic together, and it never gets old. It really doesn't.
Thank you.
Hi, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about, obviously not everybody, you mentioned in the panel that you made the film for people who weren't necessarily just D&D fans. I was wondering if there was a creature or beast or anything that you've got in the movie that you're particularly excited for non-players to see and experience for the first time.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it was the Aarakocra, which is a birdman, which is a very unique to D&D character that we ended up doing with practical effects and a combination of that and some visual effects as well. And there's something really impressive and also something really absurd about it that is that perfect hybrid that I think is a nice sum of its parts when you think about the things that make D&D special.
I would say the owl bear. It's sort of iconic to the game, but it also feels weirdly organic. Like when you see it, you wonder why it doesn't exist in our world, because it looks so cool. And we were able to, thanks to ILM, the visual effects house, they were able to bring that to life in such a cool way. And we wanted it to be kind of a homage to American Werewolf in London, where it looks like it hurts when you're turning into this thing. And I think that comes across.
I think the mimic, I love this notion that there's like just this mundane thing sitting there, and lurking inside of it could be something magic, something unexpected. And I think that's kind of sums up a lot of what makes D&D cool for the non-fan. A lot of teeth. A lot of teeth. I like teeth. Teeth guy.
That's a full quote. I like teeth.
I'm a teeth guy.
Very much.
Go to Darryl next. Hashtag show. Yeah, that's fine. Can we go for Alex next then, please? Devolution now.
Yeah, so there's been lots of films from games made in films that haven't been that successful. How do you feel that you've stayed true to the game whilst making this film?
I think we've tried to capture the spirit of playing the game, which is how your best laid plans go awry. You can't really know what's going to happen any more than you can know what the dice are going to result in, and you have to be able to pivot. And this movie's all about pivoting and reassessing and making new plans and persevering in the face of mishaps. And that, I think, is true to the playing of the game.
Yeah, and I also think there's a lot of kind of questioning of the very specific logic of things that goes into D&D, the why 5 questions, when you're raising the dead. And we have fun with our characters who aren't necessarily privy to some of these spells, questioning just the nature of all of that.
And I hope that I think one of the things that's probably marred past iterations of this was probably lack of real means to make it, to undertake something like this, to bring a world that's this complex and this nuanced and this big to life. You really need the support of a studio that really believes in it. And so I think we really had support. We had the means to go do it. We had the right number of days. We had the right amount of money for visual effects. We had the right amount of extras. It was really, you have to have a big machine to kind of bring a world that big to life. And so you, as individual and nuance as a process of making a movie is, there's also a real element of you're moving big stuff around and you really need big support. We had that. It was great.
Yeah. And then thank you. One more question just from his school with me.
Dungeons and Dragons monsters have very elaborate names. If you're a Dungeons and Dragons monster, what would your name be?
Oh, jeez.
Thank. Take a minute.
It's a good question that requires creativity.
That is like a 6-day job. Just produce the film and watch what goes into it. There's a thing in the movie that I don't want to give away a thing from the film, but there's a staff at one point, and it needed a name, and it was just a common staff that gets picked up, and it has a bit of a magical use to it, and it was weeks, and then all of a sudden they come
give him something.
They come running out with the name of this thing. I'm giving you time to think,
No, I'm good.
And they come running out with the name of this staff, and I was like, oh.
Eureka, we're good. But it's like a week. So you're asking for
Got anything?
Sure, a Terra Sweetie, which is terrifying and also very sweet and cute.
That's awful.
Give it to me. Let's hear what you got.
Head crusher McPoison breath.
So much better.
Yeah, so there it is.
like a week. But in a week they will have
Give us your
something.
email. We'll send you some options.